Hey there, girlfriend. Super excited to be with you again today. Now, today we are going to talk about relationships. And you know that I am all about talking about relationships because you know that's one of the keys to my proprietary framework. But we're going to really get into relationships and how we need to communicate, what communication skills we need for that. So, without further ado, I am going to get into this with my girlfriend, Wendy, and we're going to see you on the other side, girlfriend. Hey, Wendy girl, how are you?
Hey, Inga, how you doing?
I'm doing great, girl. Super excited to have you today. Before we get into how communication skills improve our relationships, we want to get into your business, girl. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to be on here with you. So, I'm a spiritual relationship mentor. Most people think that's external relationships, but I focus on the internal relationships. So while I love the Authentic You movement, I believe the best way to be your authentic self is to be in a relationship with all the components that make you a whole person. So I love working with fempreneurs, 35 to 65, that are looking for that leadership, that personal development, personal growth, because they know that's part of making them be the leader that they want to be. And they want to do it the best way possible so that they have the best work culture in their business. They're hiring the right clients, not the wrong clients, wasting them time, money, and energy, and having the personal relationships that they desire that are truly fulfilling for them.
So, girl, I know when I was looking at your bio, you were you were mentioning something about a 70-20-10 rule. Tell us a little bit about that and how does that relate to communication skills?
Yes, so that was so transformational for me. I was working in corporate America doing accounting, and I was such a perfectionist, because who isn't? But I really struggled with building relationships with my coworkers because I was such a perfectionist. And so my audit manager came to me one day and he's like, look, as long as 70% of the invoices go through just fine, 20% get escalated, and 10% we write off.
Okay.
That's our goal. And I was like, you're willing to write stuff off? Like, holy moly. So he gave me permission to not be perfect, and I took it. But then I started looking at that in terms of communication. And I realized 70% of what people say is their own stuff.
Okay.
It's their own beliefs, their own perspectives, their own feelings, their own experiences, which is great. 20% might be a combination of that and it being directly personal to me. But only 10% of what they were saying to me was directly personal to me. And I got 3 takeaways from that. 1, if it's not personal to me, why the heck am I taking it personally?
Right.
2, if 70% to 90% of the communication is not pertinent to me or the conversation at hand, what kind of relationship is that? How high of a quality of a relationship is that? And 3, how can I discern through all that static just to find that little bit of 10 to 30% that's important for me?
Okay, so when it comes to business, how does that relate to building a business, developing business relationships, connecting with clients, finding new leads? How does that all
Right. So by intentionally listening to what a potential client is telling you will help guide you to decide whether or not that's the right client to hire for you, whether or not you guys are a great fit.
Okay.
Right. Also with business associates or potential joint venture partners, right? If they are just giving you this whole sales pitch and they're not actually answering any of your questions and discerning through that information and making sure that as you're receiving the information, it's also checking off the list, your checklist of what you're looking for, helps you to decipher whether or not that's the right person to be doing business with, right? But also in the workplace, if you're working on a report and you've got all this energy and it's your baby because you're the one that's creating this and spending so much time on it, and you're the one that has to report it to your boss, but you're also working with other people and they come in and they criticize your work, realizing that most of the time it's not personal to you and that
Right.
that is their perspective, helps you to break down that defensive barrier of taking it personally and open yourself up to being more collaborative, or at least listening to what they have to say and then deciding for yourself whether or not it's helpful for the direction that you've been advised to take that report.
So you're saying that only 10% of what people say to you is directly related to you. Is that right?
At the time, yes. So now now that I have that, I establish relationships now that where more than 70% of the communication is valuable quality information and that we're engaging better. So now I have better relationships because I'm choosing better people to connect with.
Okay. All right. So I'm trying to take all of this in. All right. So
That's a lot.
10%, you said 10% of the interaction that you have with people is related to you. Is that right?
For the majority of the people. Yeah.
For the majority of the people. And then the other 90% is based on their experience with people, and I guess that's the part that I'm kind of.
Okay, so generally speaking, 70% of what people say or share is all about their experiences, their fears, their perspectives, their beliefs.
Okay.
10% is only directly to me or the conversation at hand.
Okay.
And then 20% might be some sort of combination in there. So my idea is that if that's the level of communication that I'm having with somebody, that might be somebody that I would want to spend less time with. If there's somebody that is more developed in their growth, in their personal growth and all that stuff, and they are more intentional with their communication, then it might be more in the 20 or 70% scale, which means I will want to keep them or spend more time with them because they're a better quality person to be in relationship with.
Okay. And then how are you deciding or really deciphering if this person is your person? How are you filtering them out?
Well, that is the filter. The 70-20-10 rule is the filter, right? It's very subjective because what I'm looking for in friendships or business partners or romantic relationships or employees or anything like that will be totally different than somebody that you'd be looking for. So the 70-20-10 rule is really my filter to be like, okay, well, the bulk of the quality of their communication is only in the 20% range, then I'm going to want to spend less time with that person and focus on higher quality people for me.
Okay. So, but isn't the communication actually dependent on how you're interacting with them? So granted, I mean, you're saying from what I'm deciphering, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right. If you have somebody that is, I guess, self-aware, I think that's probably the best way to say it. Self-aware, very self-aware and willing to work on themselves, that you possibly would have a better conversation with them than you would with somebody that's not in that space, doesn't have that mindset, that growth mindset to continuously improve themselves on a regular basis.
Correct.
Now, with that said, it seems, wouldn't it also be a contingent on the interaction that the person has? Because I mean, we all have those days where we may not be as friendly or collaborative as we would like to be because we're in our head. I'll just say, like, we just had we're in a bad headspace. Let's just say that.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah. So even though you are somebody that takes time to work on their self-development and are cognizant and self-aware of yourself, and you just had a bad day, how does that fit? Because it seems like it's more variables than what you're saying. It seems like
There's absolutely variables, and I'm not saying have one conversation and cut it off by any means. You do have to take the time to get to know somebody and also teach them how to treat us, right? It's our responsibility to teach other people how to treat us. So if you're noticing one end of the spectrum, or you're noticing that maybe they're just not 100% into the conversation, then you have to take all of those components into consideration as far as whether or not you're going to include them into your circle. Again, like you said, they could just be having an off day or an off hour or whatever. So allowing them the grace of, just recognizing that, because we're all humans.
Yep.
So 100% agree with that. Yeah.
So what are some of the techniques or strategic tactics or frameworks that you recommend that your clients do to be able to filter the folks that are their people?
Right. It's one, communicating with yourself. Like, how are you communicating with yourself? If one of the things I realized for myself as I was going through this is that more than half of my communication internally was negative. I was like, oh, I don't like these, muffin tops, or, calling myself an idiot or some four-letter word because I dropped my phone, right? All of that is negative talk, and comes when you do it inside, it also comes out. Right? So filtering how you're speaking to yourself, choosing how you want to say your message. It's not that you can't say what you need to say, but how do you want to say it to where it's the best received? And then, are you intentionally listening? Are you just sitting there waiting for your next turn to speak? Are you thinking about what you want to say next, which means you're not listening? Or are you actively listening to what the other person is saying?
So when you think about this interaction for business, how do you do this for business?
Oh, I have a great example of that. That's a total win-win for me. So I was at this business conference about 10 days ago. And promoting my SaaS Cash and Class conference that I'm hosting next April. And Saturday night after the conference, I was sitting in the bar having a drink with a lady. And I asked her, I'm like, so how have you been? How are things going? How's business going? And she tells me that she's doing really well, and that she's at the point where she's making so much money that she's ready to start giving back. And then, so, she's doing well. She's got money. 2, she's ready to give back. Right? And then 2 of these other girls from earlier in the conference walked by in their Halloween costumes. And I was telling her how great they were and that one of them signed up, but the other one couldn't afford it. And she says, well, this is one of those examples where I would love to just be able to buy her ticket and hand it to her and let her go to the conference. And I was like, great, we can totally make that happen. And she's like, really? How's that? I'm like, you can sponsor the conference at either $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000. And then you have 5 tickets to 12 tickets to give away. And she's like, oh, great. She's like, I'll do the 1,000. And then she's like, wait. We're going to do this when I'm sober. She's like, not 3 glasses of wine in. So we will talk tomorrow. And she did. She signed up. She's a sponsor for my conference. And so by listening to making sure she's checking off the things that I'm looking for, but also letting her speak and sharing her things, it helped me to decipher, whether or not this is a good business opportunity, whether she's the right fit. And then because she checked off everything I was looking for and it was matched what she was wanting to do, then I slid the opportunity right in.
Well, what happens, because and I'm sure you've experienced this too, that you have people that are more talk than action, and that they are more looking like they got it going on than they really have it going on. In that situation, how do you think you would have been able to decipher if she was not telling you the truth? I'll say it that way.
Well, she wouldn't have followed up.
Okay.
She wouldn't have followed through. I still would have offered it to her, but she wouldn't have booked the appointment on a Sunday. She wouldn't have followed through with the payment, no matter how many times, even if it took 2 or 3 weeks of me following through. Those kind of people, or people with those habits, will not follow through. So she would have ended up weeding herself out.
Interesting. Now, would you have continued to follow up with her? Or do you? Or...
It takes 7 touches to get some people to close, right? That's the science around it. So I would have continued to follow up until she weeded, either until I got a flat no,
right,
or until my 7 touches were done.
So, but you said, well, in this case, it didn't take 7 though.
No,
right? It only took 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that just, the only reason I say that is because I know when I'm in direct sales, when they say statements like that, you may think it has to go that long, but it really necessarily doesn't have to go as long.
No,
I guess that's kind of like the worst case scenario. And then even with that, you still have people that still don't respond. So
well, exactly. And so that's the part where you have to just say, okay, it's not me, it's them.
Right.
I'm not taking this personally. I need to go find the person that does want to say yes and is ready to close.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's when the filter comes in too. So why waste all your energy on somebody that doesn't want what you had? That's why I asked you that, because it's very important. And as you already said, it's very important for you to know who your target market is.
Absolutely.
Wasting time and energy on somebody that you know is not your target person is insane, because you're spending all this energy trying to convince when it's very imperative that you filter up front. So
70% of the people that you come in contact with are going to be 10% of your sales.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not really going to follow through as much. They're not really, in it for the long haul.
Right.
You want the 10% of people that are going to make up 70% of your sales.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So exactly. So out of 100 or 1,000 people, you want that 70 or 700 no's, because you want to find the smaller portion that are going to be the better fit, the longer term, the more sustainable client or business partner for you.
Right. So I'm curious, how do you identify? Do you identify as an extrovert or an introvert?
Both. Because I can choose to be an extrovert when I'm on here on camera. And then when I'm exhausted and I'm tired, then I choose to be an introvert so that I can restore and reset.
Okay. That's fair. So I guess based on what you're saying though, but it sounds like you're when you're an extrovert, it's something that you're passionate about, because it's obvious just from the way you're talking that you're passionate about this.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I'm more extroverted, more excited, more higher frequency, if you will, and I think we all are when we're talking about something that we're super passionate about.
Exactly. So when as an introvert that may not necessarily be as passionate as you are about, I guess, finding their person, what would be your recommendation on how they did that?
Oh, listen, just really intentionally listen and make notes. And even if you don't make the offer in that moment, set yourself up to follow through with them, and make sure that when you do follow through with them, that you're checking off all the lists, all the things that were on their list as well as yours, to really hone in on, okay, I get that you're ready to give back. I have an opportunity for you that matches these 3 things in what you said you were looking for, right? Okay. So even whether you're introvert or extrovert, it's all about intentionally listening about what they're looking for, and then matching one of your services or opportunities to that, and using the same vocabulary and the same language that they used. So you can still make mental notes of, okay, they talked about it in basketball terms. So when I present it to them, I want it to be in basketball terms.
Right. Right.
So that's what I would say for the introvert, is to keep the mental notes or make written notes or something. But then when you are ready to present it, use it in the same language and the same presentation as their style.
Okay. Got it. Got it. That makes sense. That makes total sense. So I know you told me that you had a freebie. Well, no, you did say you had a freebie. Yeah, you did.
Yes, I did.
So tell us a little bit about your freebie.
So my freebie is a free one-on-one consultation to get to know me, get to know what I do, find out more about my offers and services. It's no obligation. It's private consultation. It's all online. Virtually everything that I do is all online, pun intended. So yeah, just hop on my website, go to book a session right there. And yeah, let's just have a chat. Let's be girlfriends.
And then I know you also mentioned that that's what I was going to say.
Or you can buy my
I thought you were going to say something about that. So go ahead and tell me about that.
Or you can get a copy of my book, Verbal Turbulence, on Amazon. It is on Kindle. It's an ebook and paperback. And you can listen to a lot more ways of how I implement it. I demonstrate 16 different ways, including employee retention and a few other ways of how to use the 70-20-10 rule in my book.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, girlfriend. And I've heard of. I know when I saw the 70-20-10 rule, I was like, that's different, because typically you hear about the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule.
So to me, the 70-20-10 just gives you a little bit of room for grace. It's not so black or white. Okay. And I think all of us, especially these days, need at least a little bit of grace. And thank you for giving me the platform to share my thoughts.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. And for those of you who are watching, if you know of anyone that you would love for me to interview, by all means, drop me a DM or send me an email. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.